But this principle of the 3-2-1 principle, I call it. Each of those numbers stands for the number of words and what that principle is. The first one is serve others first, 3. Number 2 is own it. And then number 1 is repeat. If you're a youth director, youth pastor, write this down. Be real. Put it, be genuine, be real. You don't have to fake it. Students see right through it.
Today's youth need teachers, volunteers, and most of all, well, they need you. I'm Doug Edwards, and I'm going to be talking with real youth mentors and students to give you the knowledge you need to be the best youth worker possible. This is Youth Worker on Fire.
Oh, you're trying to bring me down and run me out of town. You're taking what you want, but you can't take my rhythm now. I'm walking to my own beat, just gonna be me. I'm not replicating nobody.
Hey, Youth Worker on Fire, it's Doug Edwards, and I am here with my longtime friend, Jason Magus. And Jason was a student when I first met him. And actually, I had an encounter with his mom, too, and that's how a lot of things started turning and the wheels started moving. You know how moms get involved, and then all of a sudden, it's all over. You know, whatever it was you thought you're not doing because the mom has changed it. So Jason had come to some of the clubs. We call them clubs. You call them student ministry, youth ministry. I come from a Youth for Christ background, even though I was in a church full-time as a youth pastor when I met him. And he used to come to club with his buddy, Bradley Blake, and I think it was like Jason Merritt, too, something like that. Those guys may have drug you in here and there. And then he works for Match Up. He doesn't work for, I think you're the CEO, CFO, all O's. You know, you're all of those. You owe everything and everybody. No, CEO or CFO. What are you?
I'm just
They don't even have a title. You're so big.
Vice President of Sales. What do you want to call it? I'm at the bottom of the organizational chart because
I don't even believe that.
I serve everybody else internally and externally.
What
That's how
he
we
did
work.
say that is true is that he serves everybody, and that is a thing, Jason, that you have always done. You seem to always have other people in mind. Now, that's my take on the situation. But he was in high school and was coming to club stuff. But I wanted him to go on a ski retreat with us. And his mom did too. And she worked for one of the schools. I forget which school she worked for, but that's where I would see your mom. She said, yeah, he needs to go on that retreat.
It was at the middle school.
Yeah, the middle school at that time. You were in high school. And so his mom said something. He said, I really want Jason to go on this ski retreat with you guys. And that time we were doing them on the East Coast. And I said, well, great. I'd like for him to go too. And so I talked to Jason. See, I'm throwing you under the bus here, buddy. So I talked to Jason and I said, hey, I want you to go on this ski retreat. And you had all kinds of reasons and excuses not to go. And you just were not interested, but your mom was and so was I. So he said, well, I just can't go because I'm busy. I said, I just talked to your mom. You just got unbusy. You're not busy anymore. He says, well, we haven't got the money. I said, we got the money. Well, scholarship is there. We got it paid for. Everything's taken care of. You ran out of excuses. You went on the retreat. And then I found out 6 months after the retreat that you had asked Jesus in your heart. Did I get that right so far?
So far, so good.
Part of it, at least,
The bad skiing was, you've left that out, but that's all right.
Well, eventually you caught up on that.
The pains of learning to ski.
That's right. We all went through those. And so, plus sand people from Florida learning to snow ski. I mean, that's the real key. We're used to sand surfing and ocean surfing and lake surfing. So it does not translate to snow, we found out. So he went on that retreat, asked Jesus in his heart. About 6 months later, I found out that happened. Well, life has happened. Years have gone by. I was fortunate. You were the first person to give me an open invitation to come up to a Florida State game. The only other university that I went on, I did go to another university by invitation to speak one time. but we won't mention that one since it was a rival of your schools. So, but I was from App State, and I did go up there one time. But you were the first guy to say, "Listen, we got football tickets for you. Come on up. Come stay with us." And I did that 2 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why we didn't do your 3 and 4. Something happened. I don't know what happened. In the second year, I said, "You know what? I'm a dad. I can't leave my kids like this. I'm gone a lot." He said, "Bring your son." So I brought Ryan.
I remember that.
And what I remember at that Florida State game, it was freezing. It started pouring down rain.
Raining, yeah.
Almost everybody left. Ryan wanted to still go down, and you had your pick of where you wanted to stand or sit because 99% of the people had left the game. And we were standing up under the shelter, under the stands and looking through. And I'm going, "Ryan, I am not going down there. It is freezing." And you took him down, and y'all stood right at the 50-yard line. I think you stood right at the edge of the seats and watched the game. And what a big treat. You've done different things like that in my life. Helped me out in student ministry later when I took a sabbatical. And you did student ministry that year. You went to Guatemala as a missionary for, I think, 3 months, was it? In fact, from what I remember,
it was 2 months, yeah.
2 months. Okay, let's say 2, 3, 2. It translates into...
It was a summer. It was a college.
Youth pastors exaggerate. Well, we try not to, but we do, I guess. Pastors do it worse, but youth pastors are second. So anyway, 2 months, though. Most people don't want to go 2 days. And you went for 2 months. Not easy 2 months, was it?
No, it changed my life in many ways.
Yeah, you came to me and said, "Hey, I believe God's telling me to do this."
Yeah, it was, I learned to like scrambled eggs that summer. Lots of scrambled eggs.
I bet you did. There was not many things that we really always enjoyed eating there until we got used to it. We're going to jump back in time a little bit. Your family started really getting spiritual when a tornado hit your house. You literally were laying in bed and you looked up and the roof was gone. Does that sound right?
Oh yeah. The roof hit the tornado. It was storm of the century. I woke up and I thought it was time to go. Roof was off. And I think my brother spent the night. I think if I remember right, my mom had said something about my room looked like a mess. Like a tornado hit it, and then it was surreal. Probably one of the more connecting the dots was that August before I did a crazy thing and organized that Hurricane Andrew trip in 2 weeks or so, and so went down there helping people, and then pouring ourselves out, students, teachers, church members. And you said, "Hey, let's do it," but I think you were planning on maybe a 2 or 3 month planning for that. And Labor Day weekend, I think we went down there. That's if I remember right.
Yeah, it was a week later.
Yeah, 40 or 50 people.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing was that not even a year later, I'm the recipient of receiving help from so many people. It was just a bookend of a time where I was a newer Christian and, hey, I see a need, go do it. I had an uncle down there. His house was devastated in Coleridge and Homestead area. And then a tornado hits my house and I'm receiving this love, compassion, God's mercy, and God's church at work and on that end. So just that bookend of giving and pouring yourself out, but also receiving. We talk about serving a lot, but we also need to receive well. I was very, very thankful for the church and for you and for so many of my friends, teachers during that time period. Yeah, that was crazy though. I remember going looking for my Bible and for my baseball uniform because I had a baseball game. The funny part of that was there was an article done in the paper, and Katie Lyons, I was going with her to the prom, and her house got hit by a tornado. That same tornado. Tornadoes jump, I think, right?
Yeah.
Like the twisters we see in Kansas there. And so, and her story is amazing how the glass embedded into the the chair that she was in, she had this feeling to get up. And anyway, we joked about, I remember the article, they asked us about, two athletes. She was a softball player. I was a baseball player. And that was our outlet. That was our normal stuff that was going on. And they knew that we were going to prom together. And I said, yeah, but where am I going to pick you up and where are we taking pictures? It was just one of those moments that we just chuckled, in the midst of just kind of picking our lives back up. But God was good. Very good.
Yeah. And see, I don't remember all those things because there's so much water under the bridge for me with different things like that. And what I do remember is that getting in front of the church, and by the way, when we did the Hurricane Andrew, Jason came to my house on a Thursday. My day off of my family's a Thursday. He came over and said, "Hey, man, what are you doing?" And he said, well, I just announced to the school that you're taking us to go work Hurricane Andrew next weekend. And I thought, I'm not going to say what I said, but anyway, but it was like, what, And so we announced it to the church, said something to the church. And I remember calling my buddy at Key Biscayne Presbyterian Church.
Yeah.
And he said, listen, we just went through the hurricane. Can you not wait another week? And I said to Kent, I said, this train is moving. And whether we stay with you or somewhere else, we're coming. Well, come to find out, his church was a place that was handling, a lot of different people. He wasn't the pastor; he was the youth pastor at that time, and so they took care of us well. And we even had a guide to get around because Homestead didn't even have any signs. The trees are gone. The street signs were gone. You had to know the city, absolutely know it, without any signs. And we had somebody that helped us through that. Military were there, and then a year later, we're dealing with your home. And what I remember about that was that your dad and your family was so impressed that we would come and help as a church the way we did for free. We just came and we announced it because you were one of our, you and your family were a part of us. And so everybody just rallied and went for it.
In that short period of time, I think I became a Christian when I was 16. The ski trip, of course. The Radams were a big part of that. Just being model in Christ. Of course, you investing in time in me, and 16-year-old thinks he's the coolest guy in the world, right?
Right.
Athlete, good student, and this youth pastor is kind of crazy, has these burger bashes, but you were intentional, and you were relational. And the conversations that we would have, it wasn't just about you, it was about listening. And that was, that meant a lot. Obviously, peer pressure is important too. You have your friends going to this thing called club and going to church. I grew up Catholic, so I didn't really hear the gospel clearly. And just God had a plan and just used this guy that Doug Edwards to help change my life, and the Spirit just took over, and you just get out of the way and just you see that it's just a blessing not only for me, but it's generational. So my kids and their kids, my daughter and son are walking with the Lord, and so I mean, all stories don't end like that, and there's still more to the story, hopefully, right? And then to see just how quickly and rapidly God was using me for some reason to bring some suffering in my life. My parents went through a divorce right after college. That was really tough. And I came back to the community and taught for a while. I helped with you. I remember looking at when I graduated, the things that I wanted to do. I had two things: engineering and youth pastor, and that was because of you, not the engineering part.
Really, I thought the engineering was all about me, but anyway, okay.
But it's a great story because it's his story and how his fingerprints are involved. God's fingerprints are involved in using anybody. And what I really appreciated about how you did youth ministry and how you invested in me was it wasn't about numbers. It was about quality. It wasn't about quantity. I remember your student leadership team and how you poured it out in just a few guys. And we had a good group of guys with Brad and Bradley and Jason and some others.
Yeah.
You can edit it later and name the people I forgot. But anyway, and you poured out for 3 or 4 years into those, and that grew, and it just kind of ran itself. Isn't that a beautiful thing? It's because you just took, and that's what Jesus did. He took 12 disciples and poured himself out into them, and then it exponentially grew to the whole world. They went as missionaries, the first missionaries, to spread the gospel. So that's how ministry works. It's just through that transformation, not just transactional. You want to be transformational, not transactional. And that's what I saw. The way that you did things, it was about the person, not a process of growing. I'm sure the way that you did events, you could have easily grown, and at times we had larger numbers, but sometimes that's not good either. So
right. We had both, and the reason that your numbers grow a lot of times is because students are really looking for spiritual things. They might not know that it's Jesus Christ, but there's something spiritual inside them. And also we had leadership students like you guys, and that were already people that were influencers in the school. That was a key thing. You were influencers already. You came to know Jesus, and you took that influence to the next level. And because you are a charismatic person, and you are, I think you are, and many teachers, students thought you were, my staff included. And, sometimes it takes people like you that will just generate a lot of people coming, and a lot of people coming to something is not about that we were trying to get a bunch of people, because a bunch of people, Jesus did that. I was just reading today about the 5,000, the 4,000, and the difference. One was the 5,000 were a lot of Jewish people, and the 4,000 were a lot of Gentile people. And so because the question is always, well, wait a minute, was there 5,000 or was there 4,000? What was this, And the complication that you're talking about also is you've got all these people, and then twice it happened. We can't let them go. They're going to faint on the way home. They've been here for 3 days. They've got no food. And they broke that down. So just today I was looking at that. The other side was, after he finished big events like that, he took those 12 away. And he had 500 followers, 500 disciples. He had 70 disciples. He had 12, then he had the 3. And so there were always those different levels and divisions of all those things. And you guys, you and Bradley and Jason, and were some of those guys in my inner circle, whether you want it to be or not, but it's like, this is just the fit, this works. And I remember going on Florida State campus the first time and walking through campus with you guys, getting ready to go to a ball game. But we were on the soccer field. Some of the guys were just out playing soccer, and went to one of the lunchrooms or cafeterias there on campus. And I remember one of your discipleship leaders at Florida State coming up to me and going, "Oh, you're their youth pastor." Yeah, because y'all had talked about me there and said some good things, and thank you for that. And I remember him saying, "These guys have changed this campus."
Huh. I didn't know that. I remember that.
Yeah, you might not remember, but you need to remember it now, know it, and hopefully your children will hear this, your wife. And I believe that you were one of those key components in changing that campus. And sometimes you don't know how you're changing a place that you are, but when you have the Holy Spirit, just your presence will change the place that you are and you're located. It changed, our student ministry. You go through phases and different personalities. Your youth ministry over a period of years, and if people don't stay long enough, which is what this podcast is about, you don't see the different changes in personality in your student ministry because you're going through growth just like a human body goes through growth.
I remember some of just going back to the events that you did. I mean, not only did events at the church, but you went into the schools. You know, the church can be intimidating for especially students.
Yes.
They think it's whatever their view of God is. They think it's, you know, a father that's looking down on them and shaking his finger, or somebody that doesn't care. But you went out into the schools, the YMCA. I remember what I appreciate about it is you would do topics that maybe the school didn't want to talk about, like abstinence. I remember was it Pam's pencil?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Brought in, and you brought that, but it was these big events that would spark maybe a few people, maybe a lot of people. Who knows? We don't know all the people that those events would. But then you'd bring it back to the discipleship of pouring out into those individuals. And that's what Jesus did. Like he fed the thousands, and then he said, "I'm the bread of life."
Yeah.
And he told people, you know, he does this great miracle, but he gets the attention by filling their empty stomachs, and then saying, "By the way, these loaves, they're not going to fill you. I'm the bread of life. Feed on me." And alluding to his greatest miracle, which he became the bread that was broken. And then, you know, he does another miracle he does that I just think of youth ministry is that he gave sight to the blind, and then he says, "I'm the light of the world." And it's just so. My point of this is youth ministry. A lot of times you have to have those hooks. You got to feed these hungry teenagers. You've got to show them and talk about things that maybe the schools don't want to talk about, even their family doesn't want to talk about, and get that engaged and stirring up in them, and then sharing with them the word and sharing with them the relationship of Christ. That's a beautiful thing. And you did that very well. I tell so many people, probably don't think that, but as my kids, you set the bar very high. I mean, being a youth minister for 40 plus years, I know this podcast is not about you, but to be successful in youth ministry, you have to have that long game of thinking it's not about the job, but it's about a calling, and it's about something deeper and wider than who you are. And that's how you change the world is through those relationships and through being intentional and being a little crazy at times.
Yes. Yeah. I tell you what, Youth for Christ actually taught me how to be crazy at times and how to be crazy intentionally and stuff, because part of it, I may have just been insane half the time. But the other part of it, maybe a lack of sleep because I was doing student ministry. I don't know. But which is why we're recording this late at night. This is after 10 o'clock at night, and Jason's got to be up at 5 a.m. And
this is when you're just getting started. This is when youth ministry happens, right? Is when those ideas turn, or you get calls from somebody that's struggling. But I'm saying a lot about youth directors, youth pastors like yourself. But Colleen was also. She was, and that's one thing that I see, and I saw is that a successful youth ministry is a partnership with. It works really well when it's a couple that just pours themselves out, and their life becomes their ministry. It's just not clocking in and clocking out of a job, but if it's those Taco Bell runs, I don't see how my stomach survived that.
No, I don't know. Mine almost didn't. I had to change a lot of that.
It's before Chick-fil-A,
right, exactly.
So at least Chick-fil-A is a little bit healthier, but having that partnership with your spouse, that was critical. I know she was just a very vital part of the ministry. And sometimes it's hard to not ask her to do much, or too much, because she still has to, so many responsibilities.
She does. And listen, she's going to appreciate so much that you said that. It's absolutely true. It's more true than I can even express. She's a hero to me. She's a hero to our children and to so many, many others.
Well, and churches sometimes will hire a youth pastor and think they're getting 2 for 1.
Right. And when they hired me, you probably didn't know this, but I made sure they knew that they were not hiring her. I told them, I said, she'll do what she wants to do. And if she feels like doing a ministry, she'll do it. But she's not hired. She's doing it as a volunteer. Of course, the brilliance, she did bring brilliance. There was, I said to some of her discipleship girls, she discipled a lot of people. Her heart goes out, but of course we got grandkids now and stuff. And so we're trying to do things with our children that were just this literally last weekend starting to do some traveling with our kids. It took us a lot of years after resigning from that position to get ourselves back together, to get me together, she'll say. And it's true.
What kept you going through 40 years? Like, one thing when I share this with people that might not know me is that I taught for 5 years, 4 years at the school I graduated in Eustis and 1 year at Orangewood. And one of the things that I found as a teacher that was very difficult was letting go to a group of students. I find that now as my kids are adults now, or off to college and the real world, is that stepping back phase is so tough because you've invested so much. But I know that stepping back so they can step up is a big part of life. How did you navigate that? Like, because I'm thinking 40 years or so. I mean, that's like 10 cycles of just high schoolers, and count middle schoolers is probably even more. How did you get through that?
Well, I appreciate you asking that. And I did write a book on it, and God would get me up at 5 a.m. Now, I'm not a 5 a.m.er, but I started writing the book. It's a very short book, but I'm not a writer. So It took me a long time to write very little, But I burned out many times. Sometimes I'd burn out several times a year. I know it was the grace of God because I'd seen guys, and you and I talked about this. I would burn out many times, and there's times I would absolutely collapse. But the one thing that I learned from Youth for Christ while I was single then, met Colleen halfway through that 6-year career with them, which I did not intend to leave, and I also did not intend to start. I wasn't going to start student ministry. But they helped me to see what a mission was. You keep talking about intentionality and being on point and different things like that. And just recently, I realized the difference is having a mission, not a ministry. A ministry can be a job, but a mission is, I know what the end result needs to be. And so even when I would burn out, and then there was a guy by the name of Dr. John Maxwell, who is from the same denomination I grew up in. One thing that he would say about that, you can stay where you are, or you can keep building something over and over again, or you can see it through and see the maturity in what the ministry really was supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And so when I'd want to quit, and one time I was ready to quit, and I said, God, I'm done. Year 5 is critical for this. When you get a youth pastor, when you get him to year 5, if you get him that far, because the average quits at 18 months, the church is probably done with him or her. Mm-hmm. And it's because they can't see the next level. They can't see that they're building to build. I died on the vine many times.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think I apply a lot of that in my business as well. I think what we see a lot in this generation is instant gratification. But it's not just this generation, it's been the previous generations. When we got out of the agrarian of farming, mm-hmm. patience went out the door.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, farmers didn't wake up and go, "Oh, okay, we got crops today. Let's go reap the harvest and take it to the market and have a feast." There was, some of the biblical feasts, were 7 years. There was lots of there's lots of patience and time So I think what your point is, you've got to give it time. Like 5 years, you have to invest. You have to put the things in motion, set the structure. You have to have a foundation, and then you have to build it. You don't build a house in one day. Well, I mean, unless you're Mission Discovery or some of these other guys that went over when we went
do
to
it in
Mexico.
1 week, right?
Yeah,
At least
that's
a
right.
week.
So
It took God a week to create the universe. So, hey.
that's right. So the amazing thing is that you did it for such a long period of time, and I think what students see and what they need in a youth workers, a youth pastor, is consistency. And what I see is inconsistency in our culture. People letting them down. People not staying and going to the next thing. I believe the greatest investment we have is in our youth. I mean, it's there's a reason why we have children, and we invest in them. We train them. We model that. We make mistakes. We say we're sorry. We love them. We let them skin their knee, and then we pick them up and tell them what we can learn from this lesson. And so that we need that consistency. So I think being patient, like you said, and letting it launch 5 years to build something, to have it launch. I can relate to that in my sales. We see people come in, they burn out in sales after just a short period of time. And I'm like, what are you thinking? Like, people are just going to buy from you because they you just got the magic touch. Well, there are a few people like that, and those people write books and they sell a lot of books and do all these presentations and stuff and say how you can be the best salesman in the world. But what a good salesman does, or anybody in their position, is be consistent and build and steady plotting and plant the seeds and tend the farm, and then years down you reap it, and maybe you don't even reap it on this side of heaven. And reaping, I don't mean prosperity. I'm saying relational. I'm saying your faith growing, seeing students come to know Christ, seeing students lead other students to Christ. You saw that many times. I saw that in my friend group, where it wasn't you necessarily, but it was students leading students.
Yes.
That's when you know there's roots.
Yes.
And that's what students want is roots. They want a live oak, not a water oak. A live oak has deep roots, and it won't waver in a hurricane. It won't waver in a flood. It's got deep roots. Those laurel oaks have shallow roots, and they get blown over easily, and they're not strong enough to weather, a youth group that might go through a time period where it might be a little, not as many people coming, or maybe there's been some, a student that's created some problems, or you don't know any of that stuff, right?
No, not at all. Not at all.
But live oak being deeply rooted, that's what students want. They want consistency. I'll share with you real quick. In business and in my personal life, I try to come up with these things to live by that are gospel driven, but that I can share with people that they won't see necessarily. I'm not quoting scripture, but I've been sharing this with my daughter since she's gone to college, and some of the students. I teach Sunday schools at my church. Done for the last 7 years, and it's one of my favorite things. Sometimes I have 3 students, sometimes I have 15.
Yeah,
and it's just fun. But this principle, the 3-2-1 principle, I call it. Each of those numbers stands for the number of words and what that principle is. The first one is serve others first, 3. Number 2 is own it. And then number 1 is repeat. I share that with you because I saw that. I mean, you helped inspire that, me to come up with that, as well as some other people, is that you serve others first in everything you do, in your word, in your deed, and serving for the Lord, serving others first, and then owning it, which I think is a big thing in our culture, is that nobody wants to own anything. They want to own possessions, but they don't want to own the responsibility of failure. They don't want to own their faith. They want to just throw it on the youth pastor, right? Oh, you take care of my daughter. You take care of my son, in the sense of the spiritual side. Having ownership in your faith, in your work, in your relationships, and then doing it consistently, like repeat, do it every day. As a youth worker, one of the things what I was attracted to you and your volunteers and staff was being real. If you're a youth director, youth pastor, write this down. Be real. Be genuine, be real. You don't have to fake it. Students see right through it. And that's what was great about it. You didn't pretend to be somebody. You play basketball. Okay, you'd love playing with us. Of course, you only can do it one-handed. Doesn't have two hands. But being real, I think, was one of the attractive things about your 40 years of youth ministry. And I really think that students are not dumb. I mean, they are intuitive. They see things. I don't know. Their hormones are more. They're kicking, right. So they're just in tune to the world and what's around them. Even when you think they're not watching or listening, they are. They know who's at their game. They know who's texting them or calling them or whatever. They want people to be real.
Yeah.
Especially in a world where social media these days and so much of the culture, you cannot be real and you can be somebody different. What a great opportunity to be real. But you know your strengths, you know your weaknesses. You put people around you to help you with your weaknesses. We won't go into the list of those, but I remember doing slideshow. You would call us and have us help do slideshows or videos. Back in the days when we did the slides.
Oh yeah,
slides.
Yeah.
You do that for the different classes. You know, you probably could have done it yourself, but you embraced it. You allowed us to own it. Part of the ministry is having people have ownership in it, but being real and having those moments where you mess up. You know, if you did something wrong, you own it. You live up to it. But it wasn't fake. It was real. It was genuine. So write that down, youth worker. Be real.
One of the reasons I tell people that I was successful in student ministry is because God loves the credit, and he took me completely out of my comfort zone, which was the arts music world. I was angry for 3 years. I tell people this because I want them to know I wasn't just this guy. I want to be a youth pastor. No. My first 3 years in there, God just kept me in and helped me see music now as a hobby. Student ministry was absolutely God's credit because I had no ability to do what I'm doing there. God chose me, Jason, because nobody but God was going to get credit. If you knew me, you know, I don't know how this guy's doing because there ain't nothing in there, except for God.
In your weakness,
he
made it strong.
That's it.
And I will tell you this, though you might not have been a musician, you were composing in lives, and there were beautiful works of people's lives that are still playing. Those are sweet tunes to the ears of our Lord and Savior.
Songs of heaven, absolutely. I received that. I believe that. Thank you for saying that.
So, youth workers, be encouraged, because it might feel impossible sometimes, but it's because of God and His grace and His mercy. It can, and I don't care if it's 2 or 3 students. Invest in them.
You know, we need to talk more because I think you have a lot of great insight. And you're just a great person. I always loved you, still do, and
appreciate you
and your family. All right, brother, I'm out. Give Meg a hug for me. Tell her hello and your kids, and they don't know me enough for you to hug them for me. But hey, just tell them hello.
3, 2, 1, we're out.
You've been listening to the Youth Worker on Fire podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and tell your friends. Also, leave a comment and tell us what you think. Stay tuned for more informative episodes.